Hey, Bob.
Good morning, Bob.
It's always good to see you.
And we're about to learn something. We're going to get healthy. I feel good about this.
Oh, yes.
What do you have for us today? It's always good.
Well, you know, I come here on a regular basis and talk about dementia and Alzheimer's.
Yes, you do.
But what I don't ever share with you is how dramatic it is. Did you know that today, Alzheimer's, which is the most common of the dementias, affects 5.3 million Americans?
Wow.
In 10 years, it's going to double.
Really?
In 15 years, it's going to triple.
Why is it getting worse?
Because we've got an aging population.
Oh.
So we've got to do something. And our guest today, I've invited to come talk to us about the research that's leading up to what we're going to do about this. And so I want to introduce you to Dr. Yasha Andrews Zwelling.
Nice.
She is a PhD doctor with the Gladstone Institute of Translational Research at the University of California in San Francisco. How about that for a mouthful?
That was pretty good, Bob. Good morning and welcome.
Hi, good morning. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, welcome to the conversation. As I was sharing with Bob, I actually took the information from your research talking about how many people are affected. What are we going to do about this?
I mean, the thing that we have to do is research. We have to find a cure right now because there's nothing that exists currently that can stop the disease, stop it once it starts, slow it down. So there's nothing currently that's really available that can help. So what we really need is research to find a new cure, basically.
Which is where you come in.
Yes,
okay.
Exactly.
Let's talk a little bit about some of this research and some of the things that you've come across, particularly the thing with the mice.
Yes. So currently at the Gladstone Institute, I work on Alzheimer's disease, and I work specifically with a protein called apolipoprotein E, which is also a bit of a mouthful, and the shortened form of this is called ApoE. This is a protein that everyone has. You inherit it. You get one from your mom, one from your dad, and you can get two types of this protein. You can have ApoE3, which is called the good E, and ApoE4, which is called the bad E. Now, ApoE4 is the one that predisposes you to getting Alzheimer's disease. So if you have E3, it's still possible to get it, but if you have E4, it decreases the age of onset. So usually someone would get Alzheimer's disease maybe at age 75 or 80, whereas if you have ApoE4, which is the genetic risk factor, this lowers that age that you're going to get it to about 65 to 68 years old. And it also increases your risk of getting it. So this is what my research focuses on this bad form of ApoE, and how we can hopefully find a drug that can prevent people from getting Alzheimer's disease.
That's the key, because we really don't know what causes it, so we've got to start determining that, and you're starting to narrow it down by identifying these E4 and E3s.
Exactly. So these genetic risk factors were identified some time ago. So there are a number of proteins involved in this disease, which makes it also a little bit complicated because you have all of these different factors coming in. So there's a protein called beta amyloid, or amyloid protein, and that plays a big role. There's another protein called tau, which plays a big role, and then there's ApoE, which also plays a role. My research focuses on ApoE, but there's also a lot of research going on in the tau field and also in the amyloid field.
I think it's fun to talk about how you use the mice in your testing. Can you talk a little bit about that and be descriptive? I think Bob will find this fascinating.
Well, I find just the fact that they use mice. Why are mice the best test animal? Is it because they're disposable?
Well, I mean, so that's actually a really excellent question and one that I get often. So one of the reasons why we use mice is because the genetic code of mice has been completely elucidated. So we know everything about the genes of these mice, and we can manipulate them. So what we can do is that we can introduce a human protein or human gene into a mouse, and then this mouse has symptoms very similar to what we see in people. So, for example, in a human with Alzheimer's disease, one of the main symptoms that everyone knows about Alzheimer's is memory loss. So what we can do is that when we put our human protein called ApoE4, the bad E, into a mouse, the mouse also has memory problems, just like humans do. So now we can use this mouse who has Alzheimer's-like disease and then test it in a maze to see how the memory works. And then we can also use these mice to give them our drugs to see if it can improve their memory.
Now, Bob, I want to point out it's not a maze like you and I think. You know how you think of a maze being like a hedge and all these different rows?
Like The Shining.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I saw a video that she created, which was this big cylinder-looking tub that had water in it.
Mm-hmm, that's right.
And that was the mouse's maze.
Yeah.
And they had a little island on it, and they had to train the mouse to find the island.
I want to see this video.
Like, a good example is, like, for example, if you park your car. If you don't do, like, a spatial map, because maybe you park every day, but in a slightly different location. And if you don't, like, if you're distracted or you don't form a really good spatial map of exactly the color of the floor and the number, you can get lost very easily.
Correct.
So we use a similar type of thing with the mice. So we use a huge tub of water, as Bob said. It's filled with liquid that's opaque, so it's white, so the mouse can't see a hidden platform. And we drop it in, and the mouse has to use spatial cues on the wall to try to navigate in the tub of water to find a hint hidden platform.
Wow.
And then once he finds it, we take him out and put him back into his home cage.
Okay, so no mice were harmed in this test.
Of course. All they're doing is
Never.
walking around in some water.
They're just swimming. They're taking a little tub.
Exactly. And they're excellent swimmers. They don't particularly like to swim, so they're very motivated to find a way out of this water. So they're very, very good swimmers. So they are not harmed in any way. And once they find the platform, they're very eager for you to pick them up and take them back out. So they're very motivated to find it.
So the one who has E3
Three is good.
can continue to find the platform
Exactly.
from memory, and the one who has E4
Four is bad.
has a difficult time remembering where the platform is.
Exactly. So we train them over a series of days, and the mouse that has E3, as you said, which is a good ApoE, can quickly learn this test and find the platform and get out very quickly. We only leave them in for 1 minute also, and if they don't find it, we gently guide them and say, hey, this is where the platform was, if you remember.
See, I
Whereas the
like
mice
that.
have E4, they have a hard time remembering. They do learn, but much slower. And then their memory is also very bad if you test the memory.
Now that you've kind of determined the E3, E4, now that you've used the mice to draw that conclusion, what's the next step in the research to go that path?
So one of the main things to know about ApoE, these two forms, the good E and the bad E, is that they have a different structure. So the good E has a bit of an open structure if you look at the protein itself, whereas the bad E has a closed structure. So the cells recognize this as being abnormal and try to cut it up and get rid of it. And then this causes it to become toxic, and it affects your mitochondria in your cell, which is kind of like the PG&E, the powerhouse of the cell to keep it going. So having this bad form of E because of the wrong conformation or wrong shape is what makes it bad. So what we are trying to do is develop drugs that are called structure correctors, which is trying to change the shape of the E4, the bad E, and open it up so that it has a similar shape to the E3, which is the good E. Once we have this drug, then we are testing that in our mice. So we give the mice the drug and then see if it can improve the memory.
So that's what I was looking for. So then you start going and trying to improve the mouse's memory that has the E4 to see if you can have an effect on it.
Yes, exactly.
Unfortunately, we don't have a lot of time, but a couple of things. Number one is, as a research doctor in this area, what do you think is the best thing Bob and I can do today to try and kind of
Help you. Help us.
So those are two different questions. So to help yourself, and basically what everyone can do is, I suppose a good rule of thumb is that what's good for your heart is definitely good for your head and for your brain. So you know that we need to stay very active, have a very good diet, try to avoid cardiovascular disease, avoid high blood pressure, and things like this, and keep very active. So that's definitely things that we can do for ourselves right now because, as I said, there are very few drugs on the market right now. There are some that help with the symptoms, but there's nothing really out there right now that can stop the disease or stop the symptoms once they really start. It can slow it down a bit, but it can't stop it. So no one survives Alzheimer's disease right now. And then what you can do to help me, what we need is time and funding. You know, it's very difficult right now with getting NIH funding and so on because of the economy currently. So that's something that we always need, funding for our research.
Well, and that's such a great segue into how we'll wrap up the show because we've got the Alzheimer's Walk, the first annual Napa County Alzheimer's Walk coming up on September the 7th. And the whole purpose of that walk is to raise money to try and
awareness.
And awareness to try and further research.
Exactly.
And
because
so
what has happened with a couple other diseases like HIV and cardiovascular disease and cancer is that we have a lot of survivors, and then we have many advocates that go out and really push this in Congress and Capitol Hill to really increase awareness and also increase funding. Whereas with Alzheimer's disease, as I said, no one survives this, and it's also a disease that one gets when one is older. So we really need to increase awareness and the fact that this is going to have a huge impact on our population. It already has a huge impact now, but as you said, it's going to double in 10 years and more than triple by the year 2050.
Exactly. So we need to support. Yes, we
Yes.
need to support this kind of research, and you can do that by coming out on September the 7th to Yountville and participating in the Alzheimer's Association walk. The walk begins at 8:30. Come out and see us. It's going to be a beautiful day, and if you know Yountville, we all live in Napa. Yountville's a beautiful place. So, Dr. Swelling, we hope you'll come up and join us on September 7th.
Yes, definitely.
Thanks for joining us this morning.
Yeah, thank you. Very
Thank
informative.
you so much for having me.
And keep up the good work.
Thank you. Keep your fingers crossed for us.
I got it.
Bye.
Bye.